So, working through a crank no start condition, which is probably one of the most common, the very most common things you're gonna run across as a mechanic. Like you're gonna go out 100 times a year, you know what I'm saying, probably and deal with this problem. Okay, so on this truck we have a crank no start condition. And so the very first thing you do when you, at least I do, so I'm gonna take you through the way I do it. Granted, people will say, well, I don't do it that way. But this is the way I would suggest people do it, like the way I think about it. So I use the KISS method, which is keep it simple, stupid, right? Meaning that I want to start with the simplest things first, right? And then progressively work my way to harder and harder and harder things, right? So what's the first and most simplest thing I can think of to do? And that is to make sure that my battery switches are on, right? Because what? Like this truck right here, so look right there. We have 2 battery switches, right? And so I don't know how those are wired up. It's a couple different ways people may wire them up, but it's a possibility that one of the battery switches could be off and one of them could be on, right? And so I may not have all my battery power. So that's the very first thing I'm gonna do, right? The very simplest thing I can do is make sure both my battery switches are to the on position, right? And once I do that, I know that the truck should be giving me some sort of power, right? So try to start it again. So we know both of them on, right? So now we do that, and then the truck is still not cranking. Okay, the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to get my multimeter, right? Get my multimeter. And the only thing I'm gonna look at with my multimeter is battery voltage, right? So I know as a mechanic, right, that my batteries fully charged should be at what? So they should be at about 12.6 volts, right? Why? Because each cell has 2.1, its maximum charge is about 2.1, right? So my battery should be at about 12.6. So I'm going into my communications port on my multimeter, right? So looking at my meter, I'm going into my communications port. There's a couple different ports on here. The second port I'm going to go into is my volts port. So volts, ohms, and hertz, right? And then I'm going to go to volts direct current, because that's what our automotive style, or diesel in this case style, batteries are in, right? So I can go from the main ground to the main positive and check. And what do I see?
12 volts.
I see 12 or 12.12. Basically, I can round that up, right? So it's saying 12.18. So what does 12 volts automatically tell me about these batteries?
You have the power. No?
They're actually discharged, right? So 12 volts, because I said what the maximum charge is 12.6, right? So anything below kind of like 12.3, I'm really in a kind of iffy zone with my batteries, okay? So, because that's misleading, right? Because when you see 12 volts, you're like, okay, yeah, 12 volts, right? 12 volts. But remember, my 12 volts is my electrical potential, right? And on top of that, a multimeter can't test load capacity, right? So it's saying it can't test how much current these batteries can deliver. Right. I need a different tool to do that, which is the tool I have right there. But I can't really go any further than this right now on this particular truck. Why is that the case? Because I know the batteries are discharged. And if the batteries are discharged, there's no point in me moving any further forward. I have to make a decision at this point, right? And my decisions fall into these two realms. I could do two things. either I can jump the truck, right? I can try to jump it and see if I can jump it and make it start, and then I'll let it run and I'll test the charging system while it's running, right? So I'll see that, when I jump it, I'll see if it'll charge its batteries on its own, right? And maybe if I'm in a shop, I'll let it sit out there for an hour and try to recharge its own batteries, right? Being mindful that, normally we have a cab, this truck don't have a cab, but normally we have a cab on. At the point where I jump it, I'm going to start looking around to see, were the headlights on? Was a dome light left on, right? Did something get left on that could have potentially drained the batteries down over time? You see, does that make sense? And so I'm going to be kind of looking for all that when I first jump the truck off. If it jumps and I can immediately start it, right, I'm going to go ahead and start doing my test on the charging system to make sure the charging system is up to snuff, right? If I cannot jump it, I can try to recharge these batteries, but I wouldn't suggest you do that individually, right? Because why? There's a strong possibility that even if you, especially if you rapid charge these batteries, that they're not going to be able to sustain the charge for very long, okay? Because the way that you're supposed to recharge batteries from dead to full is at 2 amps over like 24 hours, right? We don't have that much time inside of our shops. If we work in a fleet shop, we probably do have that much time because they can probably just give the operator another truck. But if we working at a real shop, what we're gonna do is go ahead and replace these batteries. We're not gonna sit around and mess around with them, trying to recharge them and stuff like that. Because what I don't want to do is have the batteries out there charging for like 3 or 4 hours, right? And I'm halfway through my workday, and then I go out and test them after like 3 or 4 hours, and then then they come back as like a strong bad on either my load tester or my conductance tester, and then I have to end up replacing them anyway. I just wasted 4 hours, right? So what I want to do is I'm gonna say, okay, well, they're low. Some of the conductance testers can test them if they're low, and some of them can't. I believe this one can, right? So what we'll do next, right, is before we even try to bother with jumping it or anything like that, right, we'll get our conductance tester, and then we'll try to test these batteries and see the state that they're in. Okay, so let's set up to do that next. So stop the video and